Hello students, so this is Amphibian Physiology Graphs practical number 2. If you want to see such kind of videos in future also, please subscribe to my channel. It gives huge motivation to me to make such kind of videos. So now let's start with today's practical. Now in today's practical there are four components. First is simple muscle curve. Second is action potential and strength duration curve. Third is effect of temperature on simple muscle curve. And fourth is effect of load on simple muscle curve. We'll take one by one each one of them and see in detail. First is simple muscle curve. It is a mechanical event and this is the graph of simple muscle curve. Let's dive deep into it. So this is the graph of simple muscle curve. First definition of simple muscle curve. Now muscle curve. So it is a graphical recording of muscular contraction. Now this graph is because of the contraction of the skeletal muscle. So when the skeletal muscle contract, this graph is obtained. That is why it is called muscle curve. Now because it is a simple recording of the muscular contraction, it is called simple muscle curve. How it is obtained? So what is the setup of obtaining simple muscle curve? So this is the setup. Now this instrument is the kymograph. This kymograph is a moving drum which is attached through a rod to a motor. This is the muscle lever which writes on the kymograph. On the moving drum of the kymograph there is a smoked paper. On the smoked paper this muscle lever has a pointer which marks the graph. So this is the muscle lever. This rod like structure is a muscle lever. This muscle lever through the thread it is attached to a muscle and this muscle is placed on myograph board and these are the electrodes for stimulating the muscle. So what happens when we stimulate the muscle contracts and it will pull this thread. When it pulls this thread, this muscle lever will move vertically up and down on the moving drum and a graph will be obtained which is this simple muscle curve. So this is the method of obtaining the simple muscle curve. Now what are the components of simple muscle curve? Basically there are four components of simple muscle curve. A to B one section, B to C second section, C to D third section and after D is the fourth section. One by one we'll take each of them. First is latent period. So latent period is from A point to B point. Okay, from A point to B point is a latent period. In this A point, if you see there is a long marking, this is a marking of the stimulation of the muscle. So that is why it's called PS, point of stimulation. So this is the point where a muscle is actually stimulated. But after stimulation, you can see the graph is not showing any sign. So that is why this period A to B is known as latent period. Latent means hidden period. So here mechanically nothing is happening, but chemically there are lots of processes that are happening. Which are the processes that happens? First is stimulation of nerve. If nerve is stimulated, then release of acetylcholine. This acetylcholine binds to the nicotinic receptors on the muscle end plate. That will cause opening of the sodium channels. This sodium influx will cause depolarization of muscle and action potential in the muscle will develop. Then it will cause release of calcium. This calcium will bind to troponin C. These all processes are included in the latent period A to B. So A to B mechanically nothing is happening, but chemically lots of processes are happening. The next portion B to C is this B to C is known as the contraction period. In this B to C section, if you see the line or the graph is rising, there is a rising of the muscle lever. It is because of the muscle contraction. So here the muscle has started contracting and it contracts and it reaches the maximum point or peak of the muscular contraction. So this B to C is the contraction period. From C to D is the relaxation. So now after reaching the maximum point, now muscle has started relaxing. Okay, so the lever goes downwards and reaches the baseline. So C to D is the relaxation period. Now after D, you can see there are small curves are formed. These four small curves are known as physiological curves. So physiological curves are obtained because of the Newton's first law of motion. What is Newton's first law of motion? When anything is in motion, it will remain in motion until unless some external force is acting on it. So it is the law of inertia. So what is happening here? Now the muscle lever started rising because of the contraction. It came back to the baseline because of relaxation. But this muscle lever is in motion. So it will remain in motion and produce smaller curves in spite of muscle contraction has stopped. So in spite of stoppage of muscular contraction, these small curves are obtained because of the inertia of the muscle lever. And small curve markings on the below graph, you can see it is because of the time tracing tuning fork. This time tracing tuning fork will produce smaller waves of 100 hertz, that is 100 waves per second. So based on that you can find out the period's duration. So you can find out the duration of the latent period, we can find out the duration of the contraction period and relaxation period and so on and so forth. So these smaller curves are that of time tracing tuning fork. Now, one question commonly asked is why relaxation period is longer than contraction. If you see here, this CD, the length of CD is longer than the length of BC. So the length of relaxation period is slightly longer than the contraction period. Why this is happening? It is because of molecular process. So what happens during contraction? The calcium that is present in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, when the muscle action potential is produced, this calcium is released through the ryanodine receptor into the sarcoplasm. This calcium will cause muscle contraction. Now, in order to cause muscle relaxation, the same calcium need to be pushed back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. That pushing back is done by the Sarka pump. Now, this Sarka pump uses energy of ATP to push back the calcium into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. It is a very slow process. So, release of calcium is fast, but pushing back the calcium back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum takes some longer time. So, that is why the relaxation is longer than the contraction period, because in relaxation the Sarka pump is used, and this Sarka pump is a slow process compared to the release of calcium in the contraction period. The next question that is commonly asked is isotonic and isometric exercises. So these are the graphs of isotonic and isometric. First of all, let us understand what is isotonic. Iso means same, tonic means tension. So in this kind of exercise, the tension inside the muscle remains the same. Isometric. So iso means same, metric means length. So in this kind of exercise, the length of the muscle remains same. Isotonic contractions are the day-to-day examples of body movement. So whenever the movement of body occurs, they are the isotonic contractions. So here actual muscle shortening is happening. So tension inside the muscle does not change. But in isometric contractions, the length of the muscle does not change. Like in this example, if you see the person is pulling the chain which is attached to a wall. Now wall will not move, so hand will also not move. But muscle is contracting. So these are the example of isometric contraction. Another example of isometric contraction is anti-gravity muscles. These anti-gravity muscles are also kind of muscles which are contracting, but they are not causing the movement of the body. They are just maintaining the posture of the body against gravity. So anti-gravity muscles are also isometric contractions. In isotonic contraction, what is happening? Because the movement of the limb is there, so external work is done, so heat production is less. While in isometric contraction, because the movement of limb is not there, muscle is not shortening, so heat production is more. So these are the difference between the isotonic and isometric exercises. Now let's move to the next slide. So now next section is action potential and strength duration curve. Both of them are electrical phenomena. This is the graph of action potential and this is the graph of strength duration curve. We'll take one by one each of them. So action potential. Now before we start action potential, you should know one term that is known as resting membrane potential or RMP. Now name itself suggests it is the membrane potential of any excitable tissue at the resting state. For example, in this case, the small nerve, it is minus 70 millivolt. For larger nerves and skeletal muscle, it is minus 90 millivolt. So membrane potential at the resting state is known as resting membrane potential. Now what is action potential? Action potential is the change in the membrane potential of any excitable tissue when threshold stimulus is applied. So here the word important is threshold stimulus. Only if threshold stimulus is applied, the membrane potential change is known as action potential. Now what are the parts of action potential? We'll take one by one. First is stimulus artifact. Here if you can see there is a small spike that is produced. It is because of the stimulation of the nerve here, and a small spike is produced because of stimulation, that is known as stimulus artifact. After that, if you see there is a straight line here, this straight line or baseline is the latent period. So again here chemical processes are happening, but electrically nothing is shown here, so that is why it is known as latent period. So nothing is happening in the latent period electrically, but chemically there are lots of process happening. After that, if you see there is a small rise in the membrane potential towards the positive side, and there is a marking here that is known as firing level. Usually in this case it is minus 55 millivolt. So in skeletal muscle, minus 55 millivolt is the firing level. Up to this stimulation, if the stimulus strength is strong enough, if it reaches minus 55 millivolt, then it will be converted into action potential. So firing level is the level minimum required to produce an action potential. That is why firing level is very important. Usually in skeletal muscle it is minus 55 millivolts. So this is the firing level. Next is depolarization. This wave is known as depolarization. Why it is called depolarization? Because the polarity of the excitable tissue is changed from negative to positive. Okay, from negative, from minus 70 it is become plus 35. So from minus to plus, so the polarity is totally changed. That is why this phase is known as depolarization. So this phase is known as depolarization phase. From minus to plus is depolarization. Why this happens? It is because of opening of voltage gated sodium channels. Next is overshoot and spike. So whenever the membrane potential becomes more than 0, so when it crosses the 0 mark, it is known as overshoot. So this portion is known as overshoot, and spike is the pointy portion of the external potential. Whenever there is a pointy portion, it is the spike potential. Repolarization. This phase is known as repolarization phase. Why it is called repolarization? Because now the polarity is again regained. From positive, again it becomes negative. So that is why this portion is known as repolarization phase. What is the cause of repolarization? It is opening of voltage gated potassium channels. So that is why repolarization happens. Next is after depolarization. This portion is known as after depolarization phase. This after depolarization is slower repolarization phase. So basically, though it is after repolarization, it is named as after depolarization. So it is kind of a misnomer. Then after hyperpolarization, this portion is known as after hyperpolarization, while this portion is known as hyperpolarization. Why hyperpolarization? Because now the polarity goes beyond the normal RMP. So it becomes minus 72 in this case. So instead of minus 70, it will go below this. So that is why it is called hyperpolarization. Then again it will regain the minus 70. This portion is known as after hyperpolarization. The importance of after hyperpolarization, it is because of the opening of the sodium potassium pump. So after hyperpolarization, it is because of the opening of the sodium potassium pump. Now let's move to the next section of the slide. So strength duration curve or excitability curve. This is the graph of strength duration curve or excitability curve. First definition of strength duration curve. So name itself suggests strength duration. So it is a graphical recording of strength of stimulus against the duration of time taken to produce the response in millisecond. Okay. So strength of stimulus against the time taken to produce a response in milliseconds. So that is why it is called strength duration curve or SD curve. Excitability curve. Why it is called excitability curve? Because by seeing the graph, we can find out whether the tissue is less excitable or more excitable. That is why it is called excitability curve. First, Rio base. So this C section here in the graph is the Rio base. What is Rio base? It is a minimum strength of current that is required to produce a response. In this case, if you see, it is 0.5 millivolt. So when we give 0.5 millivolt current, the tissue respond. But when we give 0.4 millivolt current, it does not give a response. So less than 0.5 millivolt, it does not give response in spite of giving for long period of time. But when we give 0.5 millivolt for certain period of time, it will produce a response. So here the Rio base is 0.5 millivolt. Now what is utilization time? So this B section is utilization time. So when we give Rio base current, how much time the tissue takes to produce a response? In this case, it is 0.3 millisecond. So it takes 0.3 millisecond or more to produce a response when Rio base current is applied. So this B section is the utilization time. Okay. The third is Cronexc C. Now scientists wanted to know what will happen if we give double the Rio base current strength. For example, in this case, if it is 0.5 millivolt is Rio base, what will happen when we give 1 millivolt? When we give 1 millivolt current to the excitable tissue, naturally the tissue will respond faster because double the strength of current is given. So here the tissue is responding in 0.1 millisecond. So it is responding very much faster. So this A section is the Cronexc C. So what is Cronexc C? It is a time taken for the tissue to respond when double Rio base current is applied. So that is Cronexc C. What is the importance of Cronexc C? By knowing Cronexc C, we can know the excitability of any tissue. So Cronexc C is a parameter of excitability. For example, if the tissue is less excitable, the Cronexc C will be more. If the tissue is more excitable, the Cronexc C will be less. So Cronexc C and excitability are inversely proportional. More excitability means less Cronexc C, and more Cronexc C means less excitability. So both are opposite. Okay. Here also in the graph, you can see the black line is the more excitable tissue and the red line is the less excitable tissue. So lesser the tissue excitable, more it will go outward and upwards. Okay. So the graph will go outward and upwards when the tissue becomes less and less excitable. So the Cronexc C will be more and more. So this is the graph of same muscle. But what is happening? The black one is the muscle that is having muscle intake nerve supply. While the red one is the same muscle, but it is not having a nerve supply. When it loses the nerve supply, the excitability of the muscle decreases. So the importance of Cronexc C is if the same muscle shows less excitability or more Cronexc C, that means the muscle is denervated. Now, what are the factors affecting the excitability of nerve? There are lots of factors which affect, like the strength of the current, the number of stimulation, the myelination of the nerve, the temperature of the nerve, the pH of the nerve. So there are lots of factors which affect the excitability of the nerve. Another question that is commonly asked, temporal and spatial summation. First of all, what is summation? Summation is addition of stimuli. So if you give multiple stimuli, if they are added up, it is known as summation. There are two types of summation: spatial summation and temporal summation. So what is temporal summation? Temporal summation means here the time factor is varying. The name says the variation. So temporal means time is varying, but the space is same. The point of stimulation is same. So only one point of stimulus is there, but it is giving multiple frequency of stimulation. This red arrow shows multiple frequency of stimulation. So one after another impulse is given. While spatial summation means here the space is varying. So the point of stimulation is from multiple sites. So there are 3 points of stimulation in this graph, but they are given at the same time. So time is 0. Okay. So in spatial summation, time is 0. In temporal summation, the space is 0. Okay. So that is the difference between spatial summation and temporal summation. Now let's move to the next section of the slide. So now next is effect of temperature on simple muscle curve. That is, we will see the effect of environment on muscle strength basically. So this is the graph of effect of temperature on simple muscle curve. Let's dive deep into it. So now effect of temperature on simple muscle curve. So this is the graph of effect of temperature on simple muscle curve. You can see there are 3 simple muscle curves are there. We will study each one of them. The B curve is the normal saline at 26 degrees Celsius. So what is happening here? We are taking a normal saline of 26 degrees Celsius temperature, and we are dipping the skeletal muscle of the frog inside it, and then we are stimulating the muscle. So this kind of curve is obtained. So this B curve is when we dip the frog skeletal muscle in 26 degrees Celsius normal saline. Then at 40 degrees Celsius, A curve is obtained. This is the A curve. This curve is obtained when we dip the frog skeletal muscle inside the 40 degrees Celsius saline. So warm saline. When we use warm saline, this kind of simple muscle curve is obtained. What will happen when we use 16 degrees Celsius and this kind of curve is obtained? So this is the graph of frog skeletal muscle, simple muscle curve when it is dipped in 16 degrees Celsius saline. So these 3 curves are obtained, A, B and C, based on the temperature of the saline. So what are your findings from this graph? You can see the first immediate finding is that with the increase in temperature, there is increase in the height of the curve. For example, if you see the C, the height of the curve is lowest in C, and A, the height of the curve is highest. So that means the force of contraction is directly proportional to the temperature. Increase in temperature increases the force of contraction, because the height of the curve is representation of the force of contraction. So as the temperature increases, the muscle is contracting at the greater force. Second thing you can immediately see is the latent period. The C has the longest latent period. This one is the latent period of C. This one is the latent period of B. And this one, the shortest one, is the latent period of A. That means as the temperature increases, the tissue also responds faster. The skeletal muscle is responding faster to the stimuli. So these two are the immediate findings, that is shortening of the latent period and increasing in the force of contraction. Why this is happening? It is basically because of 3 reasons. First reason is the viscosity. As the temperature increases, the viscosity of the muscle fluids decreases. Okay, because the temperature increases, the viscosity or viscousness of the fluid inside the muscle decreases. So the resistance of muscle movement decreases. So muscle movement becomes much more smoother as temperature increases. Second reason is the enzymatic activity. The enzymatic activity also increases as temperature increases. So all the reactions that happens are also faster. Third is the chemical reaction. The chemical reaction also occurs faster as temperature increases. Okay, so that is these are the 3 reasons: viscosity, enzymatic activity and chemical reactions. All these are changed with change in temperature, and they are the reason of increase in the force of contraction and decrease in the latent period. Now what happens if we take the extreme temperature, like more than 43 degrees Celsius or less than 4 degrees Celsius? So extreme heat or extreme cold. If we expose the skeletal muscle to extreme heat or extreme cold, there is denaturation of the muscle protein occurs, particularly actin and myosin. They totally get denatured, totally get destroyed. So muscle goes into the spasm. So now muscle will become dead and it will not react. So that is the effect of extreme temperature on the muscle performance. Now one commonly asked terminology is heat rigor and rigor mortis. First of all, what is rigor? Rigor means spasm. Okay, so rigor in both of these condition is spasm. So in both these situation, muscle spasm is happening. But here the nomenclature is different. So heat rigor. So it is a muscle spasm because of the heat. and rigor mortis. So what is mortis? Mortis is death. So whenever the death occurs of any person, there is spasm of the muscle occurs. So that spasm of the muscle is known as rigor mortis. So it is a spasm of muscle after death is rigor mortis, while spasm of the muscle after exposure to heat is heat rigor. So rigor mortis and heat rigor. There is, in both the situation there is muscle spasm, but the underlying chemical process or the physiology is different. So what happens in rigor mortis, when the person dies, there is depletion of ATP naturally. As there are no ATP, the calcium which need to be pushed back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum cannot be pushed back, because Sarca pump, if you remember from the previous slide, Sarca pump requires ATP. So relaxation of muscle also requires energy. Now there is no energy, that is no ATP, so the muscle cannot relax, so muscle remains in spasm. While in heat rigor, what is happening? Because of exposure to extreme heat, there is denaturation of protein, as I have said earlier only. So because of the denaturation, the muscle undergoes spasm, and that is why it is called heat rigor. Another difference is that in rigor mortis, after 36 to 48 hours after death of the person, there is a setting of the autolysis of the cell. Autolysis means the cell suicides, the cell itself dies and gets completely destroyed. Because of that, the rigor mortis slowly disappears, because the cell completely gets dissolved. So that is why the rigor mortis no longer exists, and the rigor mortis totally disappears after 36 to 48 hours. But in heat rigor, there is no autolysis of cell, so muscle remains in spasm for permanent period of time. So heat rigor is permanent, while rigor mortis is reversible. So after some time it usually gets disappeared. So that is difference between heat rigor and rigor mortis. Then one common viva question is, what is poikilothermic or homeothermic animals? So poikilothermic animals are the animals whose body temperature changes with the changes in environment. So if there is winter, their body temperature falls. If there is summer, their body temperature rises. So these are poikilothermic animals or cold-blooded animals. So these animals are usually fishes, amphibians, reptiles. The lower evolved animals are poikilothermic. Homeothermic animals are the animals which body temperature remains constant in spite of change in environmental temperature. So if there is winter, the body temperature does not change. If there is summer, the body temperature does not change. So homeothermic are warm-blooded animals. Their body temperature is fixed at particular set point. For example, in human beings, it is at 37 degrees Celsius. So usually it does not change much in winter or summer. So homeothermic animals examples are birds and mammals. So this is poikilothermic and homeothermic animals. So we can see the muscle performance may change in poikilothermic animals, but muscle performance does not change in homeothermic animals, because their body temperature is usually constant because of the temperature regulating mechanisms in their body. So that is the importance of effect of temperature on simple muscle curve. Now this is a graph. If you want to see the graph of poikilothermic and homeothermic, you can see in poikilothermic animal the temperature of the poikilothermic animals is varying too much. So there is a wide spread of poikilothermic graph. While in homeothermic animal the temperature is usually constant, so there is a too much concentration at particular temperature. So this is the graph of homeothermic and this is a graph of poikilothermic. So this is poikilothermic and homeothermic animals. Now let's move to the next portion of the slide. So now effect of load on simple muscle curve. So it is preload and afterload. So this is a graph of preload and this is a graph of afterload. So let's dive deep into each of them. So effect of load on simple muscle curve. First of all, we'll talk about the effect of preload or freeload on simple muscle. This is a graph of preload or freeload of simple muscle curve. First of all, definition of preload. What is preload? So this is a graph. Now this is the unloaded muscle. So you can see this is a skeletal muscle and this is the thread through which it is attached to the upper wall. Okay, so this is unloaded muscle. Now this is preloaded muscle. So other end of the muscle is now attached to a weight. So that is why it is stretching the muscle. So this is the loading of the muscle. So what is the word preload or afterload? So it is loading in relation to the contraction of the muscle. So preload means it is loading of the muscle before muscle contraction. So here it is loaded before the muscle is stimulated. So that is why it is called preload. So whenever the load term is used, remember that it is relation to the muscle contraction. So preload means loading of the muscle before it is stimulated or before contraction. Okay, so that is preload condition. Now if you see the graph of preload, this is the graph of preload. Now these are various simple muscle curves. You can see 1, 2, 3 and 4. 4 simple muscle curves are obtained at various loading condition. And PS is point of stimulus and this is the marking of time tracing tuning fork. Now if you see when 10 gram weight is loaded, then this curve is obtained. When 20 gram weight is loaded, this curve is obtained. When 30 gram weight is loaded, this curve is obtained. And when 40 gram is loaded, this curve is obtained. So from this observation of the graph, what you can see, initially there is increase in the height of contraction. Then later on it decreases. So whenever there is an initial increase in the height and then decreases, it is always a graph of preload, remember. So initially the force of contraction is increasing with increase in the load, then it decreases. Why this is happening? You might be thinking why initially it increases then decreases. It follows one law that is known as Frank-Starling law. Now what Frank-Starling law states that the initial length of the muscle fiber is directly proportional to the force of contraction within physiological limit. This is the statement of Frank-Starling law. Again, remember, initial length of the muscle fiber is directly proportional to the force of contraction within physiological limit. Now let us understand this statement. Initial length of the muscle fiber. That means the length of the muscle fiber before contraction is directly proportional to the force of contraction. Now let's remember whenever we loaded the muscle, the initial length increases. So from 10 gram, if the muscle was stretched up to 6 centimeter, at 20 gram it will stretch at 7 centimeter, at 30 gram it will stretch at 8 centimeter. So more loading means more stretching of muscle. Now according to Frank-Starling law, more the stretching of the muscle, force of contraction will also increase. So increasing the load stretches the muscle, more the stretching of the muscle, more the forceful contraction. So that is why initially it was increased, then it decreased. Why? Because it reached the physiological limit. Here in this example, the physiological limit is 30 gram. So at 30 gram, the physiological limit is over. So now the Frank-Starling law will not exist and the height of contraction will decrease and decrease. Why this is happening? What is physiological limit means? It is a molecular process. If you remember how the muscle is contracting, these are the myosin and the blue ones are the actin. So whenever the muscle is 75% stretch, you can see the actin molecules are overlapping each other and the cross bridge formation is very less. So here the muscle performance will be less. But at 100% muscle stretching, what is happening? There is optimum number of cross bridge formation. So number of myosin against actin is maximum in this. So there will be maximum force of contraction. If we stretch too much the muscle, what will happen? The myosin and actin will stretch apart too much and there will be no ectomyosin interaction and there will be zero cross bridge formation. So the muscle will not be able to contract. So here 100% is the physiological limit. Okay, in this example 100% is physiological limit. So physiological limit means it is the sufficient stretching of the length of the muscle, that number of cross bridge between the actin and myosin is maximum. Okay, it is known as optimum length of the muscle. Another word is optimum length. It is the optimum length of the muscle in which there is maximum number of cross bridge formation. Lesser the cross bridge, lesser the force of contraction. So that is why there is a physiological limit. Now what is effect of afterload? Okay, so afterload, first definition of afterload. Afterload means it is a loading of the muscle after contraction. Okay, so here if you see, this is a preloaded condition. This small weight is stretching the muscle. This is a preload, but this bigger one is not being stretched. Okay, the bigger one weight is not stretching the muscle initially, but when the muscle start contracting, this bigger one also will stretch the muscle, but it will stretch only when the muscle contracts. Okay, so this is best example. So initially there is a small load, so that is preload, but the bigger load is not stretching the muscle. When we stimulate the muscle start contracting, but then this bigger load also comes into the action and it will stretch the muscle. So the bigger one is only stretching the muscle after the muscle has started contracting. That is why the bigger one is the afterload and smaller one is the preload. So this is the graph showing preload and afterload both. So let's see the graph of afterload. What happens? This is the 10 gram weight, this curve, simple muscle curve is obtained. At 20 gram weight, this simple muscle curve is obtained. At 30 gram weight, this simple muscle, and at 40, this. So you can see from observation of the graph that the height of contraction is decreasing continuously. Okay, so there is no increase or decrease or nothing. Okay, it is continuously decreasing. At 10 gram it was highest, at 20 gram it is lower than 10 gram, at 30 gram it is lower than 20 gram, at 40 gram it is lower than 30 gram. So gradually there is decrease in height continuously, no change at all. Why this is happening? Because there is no Frank-Starling law for afterload. Remember this. Okay, if a Viva question is asked, there is no Frank-Starling law for afterload, and that is the reason there is a continuous decrease in the height of the curve. Here, because there was Frank-Starling law, initially it was increasing and decreasing. But here, because there is no Frank-Starling law coming into action, there is a continuous decrease of the height of the curve when we increase the load gradually. Then what are the examples of load in human body? If you want to say, there are, one is movement of the limb, okay, upper limb. If we do abduction of the limb, what happens? There is a muscle known as supraspinatus. This is supraspinatus. So supraspinatus having a load of the arm, so it is a preload for supraspinatus. For deltoid muscle, initially the deltoid muscle does not take the load of the limb, okay, it is the supraspinatus which takes the load. So for supraspinatus is preload, but deltoid takes the load of the limb only when it is rises above the waist level. So for deltoid it is after load, after lifting the limb above the waist level. So when you lift a load in abduction, below the waist it is preload, above the waist it is afterload. So this is the example of human body. Then example of heart, human heart, what is example of preload and afterload? So human heart, the preload is the blood that is coming to the ventricle. Whenever the blood, venous return that comes to the ventricle, it will stretch the ventricles. So more the venous return, more stretching of the ventricle, so more the forceful of contraction. So preload in case of heart is venous return, okay. Then the ventricle contracts. When it contracts, it sees the resistance that is given by the aorta and the arterial system. So the resistance, you can see the resistance blue color. This resistance is that of aorta and the arterial system. So this is known to the heart only after the heart contracts. So when the ventricle contract, then they know, okay, there is load from the aorta and the arterial system. So that is why it is called afterload. So afterload is the peripheral resistance. So preload is the venous return and afterload is the peripheral resistance in case of human heart. So this is about the preload and afterload in frog and human body, okay. So that completes today's practical. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening patiently. So finally it's the Metzel time. Now let's start the medical puzzle. I am seen in comparison between strength and response time. My enemy is excitability. If I grow, it decreases and I shrink when it grows. I am shortest in myelinated nerves. Tell me thy, who am I? Tell me the answer, students, in the comment section below, and please keep watching my videos in future also, and please like, share and subscribe to my channel and spread the news in your community. Thank you very much for listening patiently to me. Have a nice day. Bye bye.